The holocron sat in silence for 1,000 years. Hidden beneath dust and forgotten scrolls, it waited in the deepest vault of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Yoda found it by accident, or perhaps the Force willed it. The blue light flickered to life as his clawed hand touched the ancient crystal. A voice, dry, ancient, warning, echoed through the chamber. Time is not a river to be redirected, Jedi. Those who try drown in its current. But Yoda had seen too much. The Clone Wars, the rise of Palpatine, the fall of Anakin Skywalker. Every vision pointed to one truth. The Sith would always return, always corrupt, always destroy. The Council debated endlessly. They acted too late. Always too late. Not this time. The holocron revealed the location of the Catalyst of Mortis, a relic forged by the Father himself, capable of piercing the veil between past and present. It had been hidden on a forgotten moon, sealed away to prevent catastrophe. Yoda journeyed alone. No council approval. No backup. Just a walking stick, a small ship, and a burden too heavy for most to carry. He found the catalyst buried beneath black stone, pulsing with a strange, cold energy. The moment he touched it, the Force screamed. Time bent. Space cracked. Yoda closed his eyes and focused on a single moment in history. The height of the ancient Sith Empire, before Darth Bane, before the Rule of Two. He would end them there. All of them. The portal tore open like a wound in reality. Light and shadow swirled together. Yoda stepped forward, and the galaxy he knew vanished behind him. When his eyes opened again, the stars were different. The air tasted of ash and blood. Somewhere in the distance, a red sun burned over a world of tombs. Korriban. The ground beneath Yoda's feet was red clay, cracked and dry. The sky above Korriban hung heavy with storm clouds that never broke. This was not the galaxy he remembered. This was a galaxy ruled by fear. Sith banners hung from every structure, black cloth stamped with crimson symbols of conquest. Slave caravans marched in chains past crumbling temples. Overseers barked orders in harsh dialects. The Force itself felt different, twisted, tainted by centuries of unopposed darkness. Yoda pulled his cloak tighter and walked through the Valley of Tombs. He reached out with the Force, searching for any sign of the Jedi. He found only echoes. Scattered. Hunted. The Order existed, yes, but it was a shadow of what it would become. They hid in the outer rim, powerless to stop the Sith tide. No help would come. He was alone. Above the valley loomed the Sith Academy, a massive fortress carved into the mountainside. Thousands of acolytes trained within its walls, honing their hatred, perfecting their cruelty. And at its peak sat the Dark Council, 12 Sith Lords who commanded fleets, enslaved worlds, and drank deeply from the dark side. Yoda's mission was clear. Destroy the Council. Shatter the Empire before it could spread further. Prevent the ideology that would one day create Darth Bane, Darth Plagueis, Darth Sidious. But as he approached the gates, something gnawed at him. A feeling in the Force. A disturbance he couldn't name. He crossed time, changed destiny, and the Force was watching. He pressed forward anyway. Inside the academy, torches burned. Acolytes sparred with lightsabers, screaming their fury into the stone walls. Yoda moved like a shadow, unseen, unheard. His lightsaber stayed hidden. For now. But deep within the fortress, a young man paused mid-swing. His eyes narrowed. He felt something. A presence. Old. Powerful. His name was Dessel. Soon, the galaxy would know him as Darth Bane. The academy reeked of death. Yoda moved through its corridors unseen, cloaked in the Force. He was a ghost among predators. Around him, acolytes dueled to the death for scraps of approval. Masters whispered dark secrets into eager ears. Pain was currency. Fear was law. He passed the training pits where slaves were torn apart for sport. He walked through libraries filled with Sith holocrons. Thousands of them, storing knowledge of torture, domination, immortality. Every corner of this place was designed to breed monsters. And it worked. Yoda reached the chamber of the Dark Council. 12 thrones carved from obsidian, each occupied by a Sith Lord draped in armor and shadow. They argued over territory, fleets, conquests. One wanted to push deeper into the core worlds. Another demanded the execution of an entire species for daring to resist. They laughed. Yoda's grip tightened on his lightsaber. These are not soldiers. They were architects of suffering. If he eliminated them now, the Empire would crumble. The chain of ideology would break. The Sith would fade into myth. He waited for the right moment. But patience came with a cost. The longer he observed, the more he understood. The Sith were not just evil. They were organized. Their philosophy was passed down deliberately, refined through blood and ambition. Even if he killed the Council, others would rise. The ideology was the true enemy. Still, he had to try. As the Council meeting ended and the Lords dispersed, Yoda followed one into the lower chambers. Darth Arkos, a towering figure wrapped in crimson robes. Alone, vulnerable, Yoda ignited his lightsaber. The green blade hummed. Arkos spun eyes wide. What? Yoda struck. Fast. Decisive. The Sith Lord fell, lifeless, before he could scream. One down. 11 to go. But in the training halls above, Dessel stopped mid-breath. He felt a ripple in the Force. And he smiled. Dessel was not like the others. While his fellow acolytes craved approval from their masters, he craved power. Real power, not the scraps thrown to lackeys. He read forbidden texts in secret. He meditated on the nature of the dark side when others slept. He saw weakness in the Sith Empire. Too many lords, too much infighting, too much waste. The Sith would destroy themselves if nothing changed. And then he felt it. A presence. Subtle. Controlled. But wrong. It didn't belong here. It moved through the academy like smoke, barely touching the Force, yet undeniably there. Dessel followed the trail. He found Darth Arkos' body in the lower chamber. Cauterized wound. Precise strike. No daik. No pasión. Whoever killed him was not Sith. The realization sent a thrill through Dessel's spine. An enemy. A real challenge. He began to hunt. Meanwhile, Yoda struck again. Darth Veshka fell in her meditation chamber. Darth Krell died in the archives. Each kill was clean, silent, and calculated. The Dark Council didn't yet realize they were being hunted. They blamed infighting, rivalry, the usual Sith treachery, but Dessel knew better. He tracked the intruder's movements through the Force. Subtle disturbances, faint echoes. It was like chasing a shadow. Whoever this was, they were good. Better than any Jedi he'd heard of. He wanted to meet them, to fight them, to learn from them. Yoda, unaware of the pursuit, moved toward the council chambers for a final strike. 5 lords remained. If he could eliminate them tonight, the Empire would fracture. Civil war would erupt. The Sith would tear themselves apart. He crept through the darkness, lightsaber ready. And then, a voice. You move well for an old one. Yoda Spoon. A young man stood in the corridor, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with dark curiosity. Dessel smiled. Let's see if you fight as well as you hide. The duel was brief, brutal. Dessel attacked with raw aggression, all muscle and fury. Yoda danced around him, 800 years of experience in every movement. The green blade deflected every strike. Dessel's rage grew. He was strong, yes, but undisciplined. Yoda disarmed him with a flick of his wrist. The young man felt his knees, breathing hard. Kill me, Dessel spat. Finish it. Yoda hesitated. He could end Darth Bane before he ever existed. One strike. But something stopped him. The Force whispered a warning. If he killed this boy now, something worse might take his place. He left Dessel alive. The remaining Sith Lords died within hours. Yoda moved through the academy like a storm. 5 more fell. The Empire's leadership crumbled. Panic spread through the ranks. Without the Council, the Sith turned on each other. Fleets abandoned posts. Warlords declared independence. The galaxy burned. Yoda stood atop the academy, watching the chaos below. He had done it. The Sith were broken. But then the catalyst of Mortis, still tucked in his robes, began to pulse. Heat radiated from the relic. The air shimmered. Yoda's vision blurred. The Force screamed. Time itself fractured. The portal he'd used, it wasn't closed. It was collapsing. Reality bent inward. Yoda reached for the catalyst, trying to stabilize it, but it was too late. The relic exploded in light. When the glow faded, Yoda stood in silence. The Academy was still there. Corbin was still there. But something felt wrong. The Force was distant, muted, and when he tried to open another portal, nothing happened. He was trapped. Centuries stretched ahead. The galaxy would move forward without him. The Jedi Order would rise. The Republic would form. And Yoda would have to wait. He sat down in the ruins of the Sith Academy and meditated for a very, very long time. Without the Sith, the galaxy prospered, or so it seemed. The Jedi Order emerged from hiding and took its place as the Republic's guardian. With no ancient enemy to resist them, they expanded. Temples rose on every core world. Jedi served as judges, generals, diplomats. Their word became law. At first, they were heroes. But power, even in the hands of the righteous, corrupts. The Jedi began to see themselves as superior. They spoke of the will of the Force as if they alone understood it. Dissenters were labeled as darksiders and hunted. Force-sensitive children were taken from families, not taken. Those who refused Jedi teachings were imprisoned or exiled. The Council grew paranoid. They outlawed entire Force traditions. The Night Sisters of Dathomir? Exterminated. The Guardians of the Wills? Disbanded. Any philosophy that didn't align with the Jedi Code was deemed dangerous. The Republic became their instrument. Senators who questioned the Jedi were removed from office. Entire star systems were blockaded for instability. The Jedi claimed they acted for peace. But peace enforced through fear is tyranny. Centuries passed. The galaxy changed. But the Jedi did not. They built superweapons to protect the Republic. They trained Jedi Inquisitors to root out heresy. They erased history that contradicted their narrative. The old tales of balance, of light and dark, were forgotten. They believed they had won. But deep in the Force, something stirred. A disturbance. A wound in time that had never healed. And on a forgotten moon, the catalyst of Mortis, buried beneath rubble for centuries, began to glow once more. Yoda, ancient and patient, opened his eyes. The portal was forming again. It was time to go home. But the galaxy he returned to was not the one he left behind. The portal spat him out into fire. Yoda collapsed on a cold metal. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed. He looked up and saw Jedi, dozens of them, lightsabers ignited, surrounding him. But their faces were wrong. Cold. Merciless. Identify yourself, one demanded. Yoda tried to speak, but before he could, another Jedi thrust a hand forward. The Force slammed into him, pinning him to the ground. No question. No hesitation. Just Force. Unidentified Force user detected. A voice crackled through the comms. Threat level. Unknown. Neutralize. Yoda's heart sank. He deflected their attacks and fled. Through the corridors of what should have been a Jedi temple, but felt like a fortress. Propaganda holoscreens displayed Jedi enforcers subduing threats to galactic harmony. He saw civilians on their knees. Children in chains. Force sensitives dragged into detention centers. This wasn't the Jedi Order he knew. This was the Empire he destroyed. He escaped into the Coruscant underworld, hiding among refugees and criminals. There, in the shadows, he learned the truth. The Jedi had ruled for 1,000 years. Unchallenged, unopposed. They believed they were righteous. They believed they were keeping peace. But they had become tyrants. Yoda meditated in the darkness. He had broken the galaxy. His choice, his arrogance, had created this nightmare. The Sith were monsters, yes, but they had served a purpose. They tested the Jedi, kept them humble, kept them honest. Without that test, the Jedi fell to their own pride. Yoda closed his eyes. The Force whispered. The catalyst was still with him, still functional. He could go back again, change things, undo what he'd done. But to do that, he'd have to restore the Sith. He'd have to let evil rise again. A voice echoed in the darkness. Young, familiar. I wonder when you'd figure it out. Yoda's eyes snapped open. Dessel stood before him, alive, impossibly old, and smiling. You destroyed us, Dessel said quietly. But you destroyed them too. Yoda stared at the man before him. Dessel hadn't become Darth Bane. Not in this timeline. But he'd survived. Centuries of survival had aged him into something different. Neither Jedi nor Sith. Just a man who had watched the galaxy fall. Ow! Yoda whispered. I learned from you. Dessel knelt. You taught me patience. Discipline. I didn't rebuild the Sith. I just waited. Watched the Jedi become what we would have been. He smiled bitterly. You were right to stop us. But you were wrong to think the galaxy could survive without us. Yoda's chest tightened. Balance required darkness? Always. Dessel gestured to the catalyst. You can fix this. Go back. Stop yourself. Let history unfold as it should. The Sith will rise. The Jedi will fight. Millions will die. But the galaxy will survive. It always does. Yoda looked at the relic. The weight of it felt heavier than ever. He thought of Anakin, of Palpatine, of the Clone Wars, of the horrors the Sith would bring. But he also thought of this nightmare he'd created, a galaxy enslaved by the very guardians meant to protect it. If I restore the Sith, Yoda's voice cracked. The suffering returns. Yes, Dessel said, but so does hope. So does choice. The Jedi will fall, but they'll rise again. Stronger. Wiser. That's balance. Not peace. Balance. Yoda closed his eyes. The Force swirled around him. Light and dark. Always together. Always in conflict. He had tried to tip the scales. And in doing so, he'd broken everything. He gripped the catalyst. The portal opened once more. Yoda stepped through, back to the moment before he left, back to the Jedi Temple, back to the choice that started it all. And this time, he let the holocrons stay buried.